this. And then we're going to also evaluate this using our sum and difference formulas. Okay, so we're gonna make this a and b and a and b. So the sine of a plus b is equal to the sine of a times the cosine of b plus the sine of b times the cosine of a. And then we also need to use this one, the sine of a minus b, which is the sine of a times the cosine of b minus the sine of b cosine of a. Okay, so we need each part there. So for the yellow one, we're going to use the sine of a is x times the cosine of pi over 4 plus the sine of pi over 4 times the cosine of x. Okay, and then we're going to be adding the second part, the sine of x times the cosine of negative pi over 4. And then I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Minus the sine of b, which is pi over 4, okay, times the cosine of x is equal to -1. Okay, so I made a mistake. This minus right here should be a plus. So the sign is already accounted, the negative sign right here is accounted for in our equation. Okay, so we are going to evaluate now. So cosine of, actually, I'm going to look to see if anything cancels. It looks like right here, the sine of pi over cosine of x and the negative sine pi over 4 cosine of x, those are going to cancel with each other. So then I get the sine, and now I have two of these, so this is the 2 sine of x times the cosine of pi over 4 is equal to -1. So I have two of these. Just add those together. 2 sine of x, the cosine of pi over 4 is root 2 over 2. And those cancel. So root 2 times the sine of x is equal to -1. I'm going to divide by root 2 to get the sine of x by itself. Sine x is equal to -1 over the square root of 2. I'm going to rationalize to make this a little more familiar. So the sine of x is equal to the negative root 2 over 2. Okay, so we're almost there. Now I can see that the sine inverse, remember inverse switches our ratio and our angle. So what angles make this ratio true? So sine is negative in the 4th and the 3rd quadrant. And I know that angles of root 2 over 2 are pi over, have a reference angle of negative pi over 4. So I know that x, this is from quadrant 4, x is equal to negative pi over 4 plus 2 pi n. And if I want to get the angles in, I have an issue because this is not in the 0 to 2 pi range. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 pi n. So negative pi over 4 plus 8 pi. 8 pi over 4 is equal to 7 pi over 4. This is one of my answers. So one angle, 7 pi over 4, is going to give me a ratio of negative root 2 over 2. Okay, so now we have to figure out quadrant 3. So for sine, if we take our original angle, negative pi over 4, and do 180 minus our angle, so in this case it's going to be pi minus negative pi over 4 plus 2 pi n. So this is actually pi plus pi over 4. Let's get a common denominator, 4 over 4.